I'm Travis Bader, and this is the Silvercore podcast. Silvercore has been providing its members with the skills and knowledge necessary to be confident and proficient in the outdoors for over 20 years, and we make it easier for people to deepen their connection to the natural world. If you enjoy the positive and educational content we provide, please let others know by sharing, commenting, and following so that you can join in on everything that Silvercore stands for. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a member of the Silvercore Club and community, visit our website at silvercore.ca. I'm joined today by a man who I've known for many years, and I'm excited to introduce him to the Silvercore podcast audience. He has been published in the Harvard Journal of Law, Public Policy, Journal of Criminal Justice, Canadian Journal of Criminology, Government and Policy, and much more. He's been an expert witness on firearms and criminal justice issues in the Senate of Canada, the Canadian Parliament, the New Zealand Parliament, the Supreme Court of Canada, and the Ontario Supreme Court. He is accredited as an expert in small arms control with United Nations International Small Arms Control Standards and previously sat on the Canadian Firearms Advisory Committee under our previous federal government. Welcome to the Silvercore podcast, Gary Mauser.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to an enjoyable interview.
Gary, man, what you have been doing over your lifetime of research for firearms owners and for everybody in Canada who has any interest in firearms has been rather immense. And I'm kind of curious how you got into this.
Well, it was really a matter of me when I was in my early 40s. I'd been estranged from my father for over 20 years. He and I were not friendly as a teenager. I was a very obnoxious, egotistical college kid, and he was a grade 8 dropout and authoritarian tyrant and stuff. And anyway, when I turned 21, he gave me a rifle. And I was still a undergraduate at Berkeley, University of California, Berkeley, and living with a gaggle of roommates that changed every semester. So it was totally inappropriate, I thought. And in any case, I didn't know anything about guns and cared less. So I was very obnoxious in rejecting it. And so when I turned 40, I thought the good way to get back to and start a relationship with my dad was to pick this rifle up and bring it home to Canada at that time. So that meant a couple of things. First of all, I had to figure out what the laws were, and that surprised me. I thought they were stupid and obnoxious at the time, but at the time they were just the FAC. I had to fill out a form and get a police screen. And that wasn't all that hard, but right. It was new to me. But when I went down to the RCMP in Coquitlam to file the form, the fellow behind the window took it and threw it across the room at his full of papers desk, and I thought, they don't take this seriously.
No.
and the guy limped a little bit and seemed angry. Okay. And I guess that reflected the way the RCMP dealt with wounded warriors at the time, was to put them in paper shuffling useless jobs, they would think. Right. And so I asked him, how long will it take to process this? And he said, a couple of weeks. So in a couple of weeks, I went back. And the desk was still full of paper. And I said, I came for my paper. Have you done it yet? Who are you? So he rummages through this, and papers are falling everywhere. And he pulls it out, and he hadn't looked at it or any of the other ones, signed it in front of me and gave it to me, and that I got my FAC.
That was it. He just wanted to let you wait a couple of weeks.
That basically, it was... He just didn't want to be bothered. I don't think there was any plan other than, you bugged me, go away.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got it, and I went down to California to pick up the rifle. And, of course, I had to figure out American rules and California, Washington, Oregon rules.
Yes.
And import rules and all that, and I had no idea. Eventually, I get it back home, and it's laying on my kitchen table, and I think, what the hell is it? How I don't understand this thing. But even before that, because I didn't understand guns, when I picked it up from my father, he was so excited that I cared.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had to ask him, Dad, what is this? Why did you want me to have a rifle? Mm-hmm. I'm a student, right? And it's kind of awkward. And he launched into this explanation, and I could see he cared. I could see this was part of his life, his culture. It was important to him, none of which I'd ever known or bothered to care about.
Sure.
And anyway, it started a relationship with my father for the first time, and that really made me feel good, made him feel good, and that probably helped him.
Do you think people would be surprised when you talk about a gun culture in Canada? Because I've heard some knowledgeable people, firearms type people, who say, Canada doesn't have a gun culture, which I would highly disagree with. Would you?
Well, my dad grew up in rural South Dakota, and he was a small town boy, not a much outdoorsy guy, but he did know about guns. He did think guns were part of growing up, and he cared about history. So to him, this rifle, which was a German K98, and it was a Mauser, and that's, of course, my family name and his. So he wanted us to be linked to this history. He wasn't a Nazi or German or anything. It was just the accidental congruence of the name and that it was history. And he always explained that to me. And so, again, when I got back to Canada and looked at this thing, I thought, why did the Germans in World War II have a World War I rifle? Okay? Most of the other countries started off World War II on their flat feet, also with World War I weapons, but they quickly got better rifles. England, the U.S., France, Russia, and Germany kept up with this ancient thing. Why? And then how does it shoot? How do I learn how to shoot? And so I just started asking all kinds of questions about guns, history, where to go shoot, and my curiosity just got out of control.
No kidding. Well, you still seem highly curious on this because you're still in the field, you're still researching, you're still looking at history, and you're using that to look forward as well.
Well, my current work that I'm trying to assemble is to ask the question, why did Canada or Canadian elites abandon the right to arm yourself in personal defense? Both Canada and the U.S. were founded really by idealistic Britons. Both had ideas about how to be better than England, but they also kept important English traditions, and both believed at the founding of both countries that they had English rights such as armed self-defense. The U.S. was revolutionary. Canada was more traditional. It's even been called counter-revolutionary. But essentially, they kept the English traditions of social class. The elite should be and are in control, and the commoners should respect them and follow their betters. So where the U.S. thought that the Second Amendment was a way to protect God-given rights of individual arm protection, Canada also believed the same thing. The first gun control laws didn't come into effect until after Sir John A. Macdonald died, because he kept them out of Parliament. He thought that English rights included that, and the gun control that had been proposed would limit that. After he died, the permits were mandated for handgun usage. In other words, anybody who wanted to walk around town with a handgun had to get a court permit. And to do that meant you had to go talk to a judge. This implies, and was meant to imply, that only the better sorts could get such permits.
Right.
And this was sparked because of Irish, who were not British subjects of equal importance as. Now,
Sure.
Now, you notice we're saying British. These are English rights. But because Canada was started and run by Scots, God forbid the Scots would cut themselves out of their own power. Nobody'd do that.
No. Why would you? Come on.
But we had Irish canal workers who were carrying guns, and they were dangerous, or we were concerned about them.
Perceived to be dangerous.
Seemed to be dangerous.
How could these lowly people have firearms?
And so that set the pattern for really until today, that one needs a permit in order to carry a gun. And at first, you notice we're talking about handguns outside the home.
Yeah.
Even the people who passed these gun control laws thought that these lowly Irish had the right to have guns in the home. And plus, we're talking about developed Canada or Eastern Central Canada. The West had Native Indians or Aboriginals and Métis.
Right.
Sir John A. even allowed the Métis to have gun rights.
Because they recognize that God-given right.
A broad right.
And that, that's one of those phrases that'll get some people's hackles up. God-given right? What do you mean you've got a God-given right to own firearms? Well, it's not to own firearms necessarily as a singular thing, but the ability to defend yourself, I would say, is an innate human, God-given right.
It certainly is. It's universal.
Yes.
Before there was government, there were people who wanted to hurt you, or animals who wanted to hurt you, and you had a natural right to stop someone or something to hurt you. In the English formulation, particularly the Canada formulation, it's the government grants rights.
Yes.
And where they came from originally is not stressed. God is mentioned a few times, but it's not part of it. The revolutionary Americans make it clear that rights come first, and government's job is to protect those rights.
How did Canada fall so far away from that?
And that's the paper I wanted to, and I am working on.
Yeah.
And gradually, this notion of social class or racism, whatever you want to call it, was repeated. At first, these things, you've got to remember, early laws were unable to be enforced. So parliaments would pass laws year after year and try, or maybe not even try, but after a while, with the development of better, powerful government, states, and police, these things were enforced. So we have handguns. We had, twice. In World War I, the parliament was worried about returning soldiers. So this is not an ethnic thing. This is in the wake of the revolution in Russia, the anarchists in Canada, that returning soldiers might use their firearms nefariously. They were proper people were concerned. So all guns had to get a permit, long guns included. There was such a hue and cry. People were so upset that it was avoided for British subjects, but
Isn't that-
not for not British
Isn't
subjects.
it funny they can send them off to war, be warriors, protect their rights, protect their freedoms, and then come back and be like, you're kind of scary. We're afraid of you.
Well,
We want
that's
to take your teeth out.
That's traditional in English culture. The soldier is only cared about and supported when he is needed. Before and after, they're dumped on the streets like trash.
Yeah. It's pretty sad when you think about it.
It's pretty obnoxious.
Yes.
And then in 1934, the RCMP registers handguns.
Right.
All handguns for everybody, but again, permits are allowed if you go see the judge or later the police. And again, only better sorts. Banks could have these, stores could have these at their place of business. Mm-hmm. And again, you could have one at home with a permit. Mm-hmm. So now it's all handguns all the time. But again, the better sorts get permits. And
why do you think handguns were the first thing to go after? Like, I've got some theories on this, but I mean, they're smaller, they're way less powerful than a rifle would be, and people talk about concealability. Okay, well, traditionally back in the day, why do you think they thought, okay, handguns are the thing we should start going after?
Well, there was a militia culture. Canadians. King or queen supporting Canadians anyway, were encouraged and sometimes forced to be in the militia to defend the country. Mm-hmm. And these were long guns, and people had their private guns as well as government-issued guns. So long guns were always tolerable, and up until the 70s, long guns were not even considered firearms. Mm. They were not in firearms legislation.
Interesting. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, the provinces restricted hunting,
Sure.
which was a long gun activity, but the federal government didn't consider firearms legislation. But the thing that fascinates me is that where the elites abandoned their notion of armed self-defense, the public did not. My surveys show that a majority of almost all social groups support the right to defend themselves with a gun in extremity. Mm-hmm. So my question was, if you or your family were attacked, violently attacked, and you needed to defend yourself, would you use a gun if you had one? Yes.
That's a pretty simple question. Yes.
Pretty straightforward question.
Yes.
And people who want to restrict handguns, want to ban guns, men, women, all provinces, people think this is a reasonable thing to do.
Right. And because fundamentally, I've had this conversation with people before. At the end of the day, everybody is in it for themselves. No matter how altruistic they can be, there's going to be some point. There's going to be some line in the sand, right? And I had a friend over, and she's like, nope, not me. I'm not like that. And I said, okay, our house is burning down. She said, I didn't have to finish it. She's like, I'm grabbing my daughter first. Right? There you go. There is a point. Some people, that point is very close to their everyday life, and they're just in it for themselves completely. But
most people don't think about these kinds of things. And when they are attacked, they have to make decisions quickly.
Yes.
Decisions they're not really prepared for. And sometimes they do it badly.
So part of the, I guess, distrust of the soldiers when they come back, would that be just, and I'm just speculating here, maybe just a deep-seated or an innate fear of a power structure that might be imbalanced? If the elites say, hey, we want to do something, but maybe they won't listen to us, and they've got the ability to fight back if they wanted to.
Well, if you look, the early gun laws were passed by the better sorts to defend against concerns about the not acceptable sorts.
Right.
Whether these were Irish or Italian or East European or later on Asians. It was not British subjects, except for post-World War I, where it was returning soldiers. Then in the 1920s, it was Bolsheviks, the Winnipeg General Strike, right after the communist revolution in Russia, Comintern was the source of much concern around the world. So, and the Comintern wanted to formulate revolution everywhere. And then in World War II, all guns were registered, although neither these registration efforts, neither handgun nor World War II, were very effective. Something like half, or I mean, numbers are hard to get a hold of.
Sure.
But the various reports are something like half were never registered. And then after the war, the concerns died down. But both these give hints that the government really doesn't trust anyone, not just those unacceptable new immigrants.
Right. That's a interesting world to live in, isn't it? But in some people, when I first, so I think I met you when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, originally back at a hack show in, where were they operating out of? Not the P&E at the time, or was it not the Operating Engineers Hall, Renfrew?
Yeah,
they were there for a bit
the engineers
too.
Hall, yeah.
Anyways, and I would see people, and they'd have stickers, and I see all these crazy gun people, and the registration leads to confiscation, everyone would say, and they'd have all of these theories, but either I'm thoroughly in the echo chamber now, or there is a lot of reality to that. And there is a oppositional us against them sort of view between those that would make the laws and those who would own firearms.
Well, the other thing that I'm discovering in looking at this history of firearms legislation is that while the United States was set up as a revolutionary government, they had this notion that governments were always, anywhere, everywhere, corruptible. And the way to fight that was to divide the powers. So in principle, executive, legislative, and judicial were separate sources of power. And they should fight with each other, check and balance was the phrase, in order to make sure that the people could avoid tyranny. The British parliamentary, particularly the Canadian one, is very centralized. Everything is run out of the Prime Minister's office. He appoints the Supreme Court judges. He appoints the Senate. He runs the Parliament. So the Prime Minister in any political party is the de facto power.
Right.
And that means they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and it gets interesting when it starts coming down to property rights in general. Firearms rights are one thing that people say, well, I don't own firearms. What do I care, right? And someone got shot, or I heard about it in the news. I don't like that. Sure, get rid of guns. That solves the problem. Right. Just like banning drugs gets rid of drug problems.
Well, and that raises the general issue. How does the public form factions in order to stand up for whatever their concerns are? And how do these factions have power to influence the government? The U.S. has federalism. The states can do things the federal government cannot. But Canada really doesn't have an effective federal system. So there's really very little tools for any faction to put pressure on the government. Perhaps the sole counterexample is Quebec. They have, the only way to win power in Canada is get some support from Quebec.
Right.
And so Quebec has a hammer that they can use to ensure that their wishes, their interests are heeded to some degree. But the West has always been treated as a colony of central Canada. That's really not very difficult to argue.
No.
So how do people who want to influence the government achieve those ends? There's very little. So we get protests about gun laws. We get protests about property rights. We get protests about COVID and lockdowns and things. But with the strong, homogeneous opinions of the elite, media, universities, big business, politicians, This is sometimes called the Laurentian elite.
Right.
If they're against you, you're SOL. There's no way to influence this.
Well, wow, so many things going through my ADHD head at the moment. But one thing that I find really, really curious is the fixation of everybody, firearms owners, non-firearms owners alike, on the firearm as a regulation piece, as opposed to anything else, whether that be if violence is the issue, why are we talking about firearms and not violence? And how did firearms become such a demonized entity all into itself? And our largest massacre in Canada happened with a jerry can of gas over at, what was it, the Bluebird Club Cafe, whatever. A couple disgruntled drunk guys threw a jerry can of gas down the stairs. And anyone can go to a gas station and get some petrol. Anyone can, with a driver's license, can rent a vehicle, but we're not hearing the hue and cry against vehicles or gas attacks as we are with firearms, and they don't populate the news in the same way.
Well, I think part of it goes back to the original concern about immigrants. Mm-hmm. The original notion of gun control was that the established Brits need to defend themselves against the uppity new immigrants. Mm. But since the progressives captured government in the 60s and 70s, immigrants are no longer the devil that they used to be in previous decades. Mm. Useful devil.
Right. Right.
Now they're the thing that we all need to protect and care about. And if you don't honor the pieties, you are a racist. You are a misogynist.
Right.
The insults fly because now immigrants are used as a fulcrum, not an attack point.
Right.
And so all of us are now of concern, but the progressives are afraid to mention that many disproportionately in the criminal acts are committed by new immigrants.
Sure.
And if you look at historically, immigration is a giant pain. If you immigrated, as I have, from one country to another, it is difficult to adapt. Mm-hmm. And from California to British Columbia is not a large cultural difference. Sort of speak the same language, sort of have much of the same West Coast values. When I lived in France, I was somewhat more at variance to the local culture. But again, if you take your family from one country to another, or you come in here as a single adult, there's tension. There is difficulty. Jobs, professional certificates, culture, all these things cause difficulties, and that hurts families. So it is no surprise that immigrants of whatever ethnicity, the Irish, the Italians, the Germans, the Jews, the Asians, the Caribbean, whatever you come from, immigration hurts. And so obviously there is a higher crime rate among immigrants. And you can show this in the States where they keep these statistics. Mm-hmm. In Canada, they're afraid to, so they don't.
Well, that's funny.
It is funny. And if you look at it, Japanese Americans have a lowest crime rate of any ethnicity in the United States. These are fourth or fifth generation Japanese American. Mm-hmm. Their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents have been born in the U.S., and they have a lower crime rate than whites or Chinese or Filipinos or any other kind of group. And why? I can't answer that. I'm just going to ask it.
Yeah. Well, that is interesting. And, I guess back in the day, if they're going to say, oh, those dirty immigrants, we're afraid of them, we're going to have to take away the handguns, but it's not really going to win us hearts and minds if we say it's the Irish. We'll just say it's the firearm. And
that's right. They're afraid to talk about ethnicity because the liberals have this scheme that unites the highest levels of income, the richest people, as well as the dependent lowest classes. And if they can succeed in bringing in many groups from wherever who are now dependent upon the ruling party for jobs and for access, because these immigrants came here thinking this was a better place than wherever they came from. So now I felt grateful for being admitted to Canada, and I felt that I had some duty to pay the country back for allowing me to come. And I came from a relatively privileged place, so people from less privileges might feel even more dutiful. So this is a recipe you cannot upset. You do not want to insult your supporters. So much better to do something that criticizes the supporters of your opposition. So insult hunters, insult target shooters, insult the West. There's no way the Liberals could lose from that.
And by default, they end up painting their opposition to take into a corner where they have to take a stance so that they can then further demonize. Right. And it's funny how much of a political tool that firearms and firearms owners have become for both the left and the right.
That's right.
I mean, if the right comes in, you're not going to see the OIC or any of these things overturned immediately, I would guess. It would be closer to the next election.
Probably.
When it comes through.
Well, my first interest prior to getting interested in guns was political marketing.
Okay.
My PhD, my studies were always about political parties and how to win and what strategies were useful and what weren't. So when I first got into firearms, I was, besides history, I was interested in how is this a useful object for the political parties to play with? And one argument for Bill C-68 brought in by Alan Rock and Chrétien in the mid-'90s was that the progressive conservatives with Kim Campbell had introduced a firearms legislation that really appealed strongly to the kinds of people the Liberals thought they needed. So Kim Campbell's effort to pass what was then called C-17 and upgraded the FAC and actually required for the first time a firearm safety class and a picture on the FAC. One of the reasons for this was that they were afraid of losing their major constituency, anti-gun urbanites, middle class white women and immigrants.
It's looking at how they use. I think Noam Chomsky would have something to say about how the media and politicians will use that influence in order to be able to win elections. But even the most recent OIC, like you're talking about the Bill C-68, I remember when that was going through, and that was when everyone was like, registration leads to confiscation, and I'm like, I think I see it, I don't know. Obviously I see it now. I was much younger then, and some people in the firearms community weren't the best advocates for themselves, and they perhaps came across a little bit crazy. And although well-meaning and well-informed, delivering that message in today's day and age is an art form that I think many people, both sides, have difficulty with. But I was looking, so that the Nova Scotia shooting, the more recent one that spawned the OIC. So that happened Saturday, April 18th of 2020. By Friday, May 1st, 2020, the OIC was introduced, the Order in Council prohibiting what they now call assault weapons, right? And that was 13 days later, or 10 working days, or I guess technically 9, because it was announced on the 10th day, that they came up with this new law, essentially. And I got to wonder, can you write one in 9 days, or was this sitting in the hopper waiting for some sort of a tragedy to occur? And if that's the case, why wait if public safety is the issue, right?
Well, the bureaucracy is really what runs the country, the administrative state. This is true in both the U.S. and Canada, and probably true in most of Western or civilized Europe or Asia. And the actual legislation is written and floated around inside Ottawa for decades. Ron Bassford, the minister who brought in C-51 in the 70s, was what he wrote was then introduced by Kim Campbell. And then Kim Campbell rejected bits of what he had written that were then adopted by Alan Rock in C-68. And even once it's written, that's legislation. Then we have the administrative regulations that actually put the meat on the bones. And the Auditor General in 2003, I think, criticized the firearms bureaucracy for moving to a zero-tolerance regime so that any infraction of the firearms rules would be severely punished rather than looking for dangerous people only. So the administrative state is what is out of control in both countries. There is no way to limit them in Canada. There is only the U.S. Supreme Court, which sometimes makes efforts to bring it in. One of their recent decisions rolled back a government decision enforcing green regulations on companies because they had invented it without the support of legislation in Congress.
Interesting.
And supposedly the administration is supposed to administer laws that were passed by Congress, not just under a broad mandate. So
Civil servants.
well, I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages to the administrative state, but the goal is for them to act with restraint and honor. That's hard.
You know, I can recall a couple of instances here. I remember one when we were looking at the abolition of the long gun registry, and there was a moratoriums put into place. I remember some high-ranking civil servants within the firearms program here saying, we're choosing not to listen to it for now because we've got an election coming up and we'll see what happens. Interesting. And I also remember and have it on video because I think it was Minister Blaney was our public safety minister at the time. Where we are right now, the podcast studio, this used to be the head office. I've now got a new head office, which is a 10-minute walk from my house. This is a 10-minute drive. So trying to keep things kind of central, but we're doing a firearms inspection, a couple firearms officers here, and there was a question about the deactivation versus disabled versus active, and I guess they have a fourth category, which would be destroyed. And there, I would have two handguns that are identical to each other, and they've been milled up and drilled out, and slide rails have been milled off, and holes in the chamber, and firing pin holes drilled out, and I mean, to try and get these things active at any point, you'd be hard pressed. But one of them was done before a certain date, and the firearms program on their website says that's deemed as deactivated. And one was done after a certain date, and they said anything after this date will be deemed as disabled. So disabled carrying the same connotation as a live firearm needing to be registered. So I had these two different firearms, one beside each other, and we're trying to figure this out. Going back and forth, we had the registrar actually come to the office at one time afterwards to try and figure it out. But these two people doing the inspection, and I said, look, I talked to our MP, who was she? Her name will come to me. Anyways, she was a lawyer, and she was or member of parliament. She says, I brought this up with Minister Blaney. It's being discussed at the ministerial level. You just let them know. Just hold off. We'll help them out with this. We'll find something, but just hold off on making a decision right now because we're looking at this, right? So I mentioned that to them, and I said, just so you know, here's a letter I got. They said they're going to assist with trying to find something because we've been spending so long trying to figure it out. And this firearms officer looked at me and says, Travis, in all due respect, her name was Carrie Lynn Finley. And he says, and I'll quote him, he says, fuck Carrie Lynn Finley, fuck Minister Blaney. They don't make the laws, we do. And I said, excuse me? I don't understand this. Can you explain? Knowing full well we've got full video and audio through the entire place, which they should as well too. And I mean, they really should know at that point in dealing with me. But he goes on to say, oh, it's called normative process, and we create policies, and those policies become the normative process of which is applied. And then when they create legislation or regulations, they will lean on that normative process, and they will defer to us and see how we generally handle things. So we will tell you how this is done, and they will listen to us. So I just sent Minister Blaney over a copy of that video, and it was not even 24 hours later, I got his superior saying he's been pulled from the file. He'll never be a firearms officer dealing with your company again. And here's our apology. He's in a phone call. I said, I hope I'm getting this in writing. Oh, yeah, no, written coming as well. So I got it in writing too. But that mindset I've seen prevalent within certain areas of the civil service, because governments come and go, but the civil servants will continue forward.
Well, I can tell you a similar horror tale. When I was on the Firearms Advisory Committee to the Public Safety Minister, leading up to the Harper government's cancellation of the long gun registry, we invited the head of the Firearms Center to come by and tell us what the problems were. And he came and said there was no way to get rid of it. It was impossible. That there were too many copies. Mm-hmm. Nobody kept track of where they went because people would ask and they'd send them one. And so there'd be all over. Plus, it was an integral part of the entire computer system. So that it would take years and years to erase it and change it. And he had, it's not clear those two arguments are logically consistent.
No, they're not.
But he made both of them. And so 6 months later, the law was passed and the Handgun Registry was in principle disappeared. And the same fellow came to the same committee saying he had now erased the whole thing. It didn't exist. And thank you very much.
For the long gun registry, yeah.
And of course, with the High River thing in Alberta, where the RCMP has been accused, and there's some empirical support for using a non-existent long gun registry to go into homes and confiscate firearms that they shouldn't know if there wasn't a long gun registry.
I think that's just the kind of the PC way of saying, yeah, there's some support for it. I think based on both of our connections, we very well know that there is a lot of copies of that, and it was floating around. But yes, that's and then didn't something happen in Quebec there where they were able to now retain that so-called destroyed registry? Didn't they have a?
I'm never really quite sure of how this worked, but there was a sponsored case that allowed the government to keep a copy. Supposedly isolated and reserved just for this person. Plus, of course, Quebec did not destroy its provincial registry, and so there's copy that is linked to that as well. So at the very least, there's these cloistered, if you wish, copies that, but essentially these are outdated. And now with the new C-71 rules about getting a transfer number and leaving the firearms and owners' information, we now have a downloaded long gun registry in the hands of anybody at a gun show or anybody who transfers a rifle or a shotgun.
Right. Yeah, it's just a registry by a different name, which carries, especially for the businesses, even further penalties for businesses under the business regulations. And I even have to wonder if that exceeds the, I haven't looked at it, but privacy laws for retaining data and information for certain periods of time, right? I mean, there's so many conflicting things inside here. And to what end? I mean, I get I get the concept that people can say, well, okay, so you register your car, so you should register your firearm. Well, you don't really register your car, right? I'm registered as a driver, and I can drive my own vehicle. If my own back 40 is, I don't need a driver's license, right?
Well, if guns were treated as cars, we'd have a heck of a lot more freedom with our guns.
Sure as hell would, wouldn't we? But I get how some people can try and sell the idea of having a registry so they know where they all are, right? And so if something goes wrong, hey, we can. But the reality, even the most loyal following person to that dogma would realize that it really falls apart. The second somebody's doing something nefarious with a firearm, are you going to say, don't worry, I checked the registry. They only have one and we got it. So we don't have to worry anymore. Or you go into a place and you say, these are some bad dudes here, but nobody worry. No guns here. We've checked the registry. Right?
Well, I remind you that there's a lot of data that suggests something like half of all the people who owned guns in the 90s never got around to registering or getting a license.
Yes.
So a recent Angus Reid poll, and if you look at their demographics at the bottom of their website, you can see that the number of firearms owners is roughly twice the number of people with PALs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is a public opinion poll. These people are admitting to an unknown person on the telephone that they have a firearm.
You'd be surprised at how many times I'm at political functions, politicians, oh, hey, Travis, I know what you do. I've learned what you do through talking to you now. And they'll say, I probably should get my license because, I've got this firearm under my bed for X amount of time. Or a number of people that just readily in positions of authority or power, and they will view it, rightly so, as something that's rather innocuous. Okay, so I got a gun under my bed. Who cares? It's not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything nefarious with this. I'll get myself licensed. And what's the worst that could happen to me? Well, firearms owners know, based on the training and being in it, what's the worst that can happen to you? Well, if you don't even have your license and you're driving and you get pulled over, you get a ticket. But you know what? They'll rip that ticket up if you come within a couple days and show them your license and you get a failure to produce and it's all gone. We're good. Your firearms license, you'd be looking at jail time. I mean, it's pretty serious.
Well, it's not just guns, but in many aspects of life, most people just don't realize how much they're putting themselves at risk by giving away information about themselves on the internet, by buying things or selling things of all sorts. And people either are naive or trusting or ignorant or all three, and just don't think that they're doing anything wrong. I've heard people say, well, I've done nothing wrong, so I should have no fear for a police to come in my house and search it for drugs or search it for guns because I know there's none there.
Sure.
They don't understand that police have various goals in their own life that may very well think of you as expendable and plant drugs.
That would never happen, Gary. Plant drugs? Are you kidding me?
Well, in my teenage years, I remember being at this party where there was beer available, and I was 18, and beer, the legal age was 21. And I was pulled out of the party, stuck in the back of a police car, and then pulled out. And the police said they found a weapon in the back seat, and he was going to charge me for it. And I said, I'm an 18-year-old drunk. I'm not. and I just laughed at him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, I was naive.
Sure.
I knew it wasn't mine, and therefore it was not my problem.
Right.
But it really was my problem. If he had wanted to, I could have been through courts and through all sorts of trouble. So he dropped it. It disappeared. There was no problem. But there's no reason for that to happen every time.
No. And, back behind me here, the cameras won't pick it up, but there's a nice little apology letter on the wall from the RCMP. I think you may have read that one at one time. I think it was in the newspapers, but May 16th, 2008. You think prior to then, I was a golden child with the firearms program, and we're dealing with several Vancouver police, New West, Abbotsford, Transit Police. I was working with them on a day-to-day basis. Old CFO, I was at his retirement party, working with the firearms program on a regular basis. And, that mentality, I've done nothing wrong, right? What do I got to worry about? Well, I had done nothing wrong. I'm more than happy to help them out, but it didn't stop them from putting my life through turmoil for 8 years. I don't think I've ever actually talked about this on the podcast, but it's, and I won't go into the great detail of it, but from a cautionary tale for those who would say, if you've not done nothing wrong, what do you have to be concerned about? Well, 8 years is a long time of your life and a lot of money to be spending on multiple different lawyers who never got the chance to see a day in court to really prove their mettle, because the second we finally got down to the courtroom, the Department of Justice says, okay, you win, you get everything you want. And he says, I want to shake your hand, Travis, right? I'm like, no, I'm not shaking your hand. You've made my life miserable for 8 years. He's like, I've never met somebody with your brinkmanship, a term which I hadn't heard before then. But I said, you got to realize there was no brink for me. This isn't a game, right? You'd already pushed me over the edge. I would sell everything I owned. I'd live in a cardboard box. My wife and kids might dislike me for it, but before admitting to something I didn't do. And in the end, the firearms officer responsible for the business, turns out he had not one, not two, but three competing business interests, two of which were incorporated. The police officer, the so-called lead investigator, he ends up getting criminally charged and convicted, although some of the points were dropped off, but he was in possession of prohibited firearms, drugs that were just kind of disappearing from the property office. And like all of these people, if they're interested, they could read the news articles. I don't need to go down that sort of negative wormhole, but there is a point to all of that, which is those who think it could never happen to them. Those who say, I've got nothing to worry about, right? I've done nothing wrong. This just affects other people. That's all well and good until it affects you. And guaranteed, the further down the line we go, it's starting to affect more and more people. Maybe not as dramatically as what had happened to me at the time, but it happens.
It's easy. I get phone calls from people who have run afoul of some firearms law. And my first response is, I'm a professor, not a lawyer. There's no way I could be of help to you no matter what your situation is.
Right.
But they call and they're desperate, and they have talked themselves into a problem. I had one fellow call me and say that his truck was stolen, and he was getting ready for a hunt, and so he got the truck all stashed with food and clothing and everything, and left his gun in the truck to become acclimatized with the temperature, and it was stolen with the gun in it. So he calls the police and tells them that the truck and gun were stolen. So now he's charged for unsafe storage and convicted by his own words. And he calls me for help. And I say, I can't help you. Your case is decided because you told him what you did, and what you did was wrong by the law, and that's it.
It was interesting because in my situation, I get a phone call from from my receptionist, and I'm like, oh, it's kind of odd. She's phoning me in the morning, and she sounds a little bit off. And I said, is everything okay? She's like, oh, I'm okay, but you should probably get here. The police are here. And I said, oh, okay. I'm actually on my way anyways. I'm in my vehicle. I'm driving over. I had a trailer in tow, and I said, oh, what do they want, right? Because I was working with Vancouver Police at the time, and like I say, New West and Abbey and a few others, and I figured it was one of the things we're working on with them. And they said, well, they have a warrant here. And I said, oh, we'll take a look at the warrant, get a copy, and show them what they need, right? I figured maybe one of the firearms that we had was something of interest. And He says, no, you should, they said they want to wait until you get here. So I drive in. I think I was driving an Xterra at the time with towing a big trailer behind it. And they had the block cordoned off. They had a municipally integrated ERT here. I drive around back, and there's a team staged in the back, and I snuck up on them, so to speak. And
wow.
And this first guy, oh, hey, Trav. Yeah, can you just park over here? I'm really, really sorry. We don't want to be here. This isn't, I forget what he said. It was Abbotsford because it's municipally integrated. This isn't Abbotsford. It's got nothing to do with us, right? And okay, I don't know who he was, all masked up, right? But he seemed to know me. Next person says, oh, I know your father. He trained me back in the academy, and I just want you to know this isn't New West. Right? And each person, anyways, I get inside the building, and right off the bat, this one guy's like, okay, this is illegal over here. And I started explaining to him why it's not illegal, right? And okay, this over here is illegal, and I explained to him why it's not illegal. By the third one, I remember this YouTube video of a lawyer in the States, and it's called Don't Talk to the Police, right? And it's one of these things that everybody should read. Everybody should watch it, because this lawyer makes a very, very good point, and he gives equal time to the police afterwards to talk and rebut or refute anything that he says. And the police say, I can't refute anything. Seriously, don't talk to the police. There's plenty of time afterwards when you can talk to them to explain, even if you know you've done absolutely everything right, which I knew and which many others know. The only thing that you can do is hurt yourself by opening your mouth. You can explain it all after.
Exactly.
The one thing, though, that I would change from that whole video, because what I got from that was, okay, I could see there's an agenda here. I see there's a mission that they're on. I'll shut up, right? I get pulled into the pre-trial center. I'm phoning up friends. I'm like, do you guys know any lawyers? They're like, well, corporate lawyers, sure. Like, why would I know anybody who knows lawyers, right?
Yeah, that's the issue.
Right. And so anyways, we get in there, and I end up spending 3 days in a cell, and my father's in another cell, my mother's in another cell, my two brothers are in other cells, and they hold us while going through and seizing everything, executing warrants. And so I'm like, okay, don't talk to the police. And later on, a bright individual, a friend of mine said when he was reviewing things, he says, you know, Travis, you did a very good job of just saying nothing when you're in there, but perhaps you could have built a very strong case by asking some questions when you're in there as well, because all of a sudden that talking is now on the other side. Yeah. And whoever it is that's doing the interviewing is going to be essentially etching their words in stone, which can later be reviewed. That's so right. Asking questions of them, I think, would be the only thing that would add to all of that. So yeah, that was an interesting experience, but it's one that obviously ended up as it ought to, with the police officer separately getting charged for his malfeasance and misgivings, and the apology being issued, and an undisclosed cash settlement and all the rest. But it's, don't talk to the police. Good advice.
That's a horrible story, and you were just really abused is the only word I can think of. That really was an abusive process, and you were just victimized. That's horrible.
I remember Crown Counsel says, Trav, I think you're right. Like, this is original Crown, right? I've been looking at it. I barely looked at the file, but yeah, it looks like you haven't done anything. But, just help us out here, right? Just maybe take a plea deal, and we'll give you everything back, right? And how about you just sign this letter saying you guys are sorry, and you can hold on to everything. We'll get it all back. We're all back to normal, right? I said, no. I said, there's no way I'm admitting to wrongdoing. Like, if I'd done something wrong, I'd say, hey, that sounds like a sweet deal. Great. Let's take it. And he says, I've done an assessment of your house. I've done an assessment of your office. I've done an assessment of your family's house. Like, here's how much money we think you have to fight it. And here's how long that we can drag this thing out. He said this to me.
Wow.
It would be so much cheaper if you a typical counsel will cost about this much. So we've calculated it'll cost about this much to defend it. This is easy. You get what you want in the end. You get everything else. Everyone's happy. Anyways, that same Crown Counsel afterwards I really admire you, Travis. I admire your level of stick-to-itiveness, and I'm going to recommend you as a subject matter expert on these issues to others. Essentially, please don't come after me, right?
That's horrible. Most of the people who call me to complain are just ignorant of the law and ignorant of how to deal with any mistakes. So your situation, there was a actual malevolent person on the police side. The law is very complicated, and it's not surprising that both the police and the suspect or any general firearms owner would not know everything. So it is quite easy to make mistakes.
I agree.
At one point, I wanted to interview police because one of my skills from my PhD program was survey research. So I thought one way to start doing this would be to survey various groups, Canadians, British Columbians, police, and see what opinions could come out of that. But I was blocked by the RCMP and as blocked by the Vancouver police for different reasons. The officer in charge of the Vancouver police said, "You want to interview the police on gun laws? They don't know enough for you to interview."
Right.
I mean, I think that's right. I mean, that's not an insult.
It's not. Guns are a small portion of what they have to deal with. There's so much they have to know, and I should be clear in case my previous words are coming across as sort of anti-police. I couldn't be more pro-police than anybody else. There's going to be those small percentage of really bad apples. I ran into them. There's going to be those small percentage of really good people out there. The majority are just your rank and file. They'll plug in. They'll do their day. They're humans. We're all the same. We're animals. There's a reason there's game trails. They like to follow the same path of least resistance, right?
Of course. And now with multicultural hiring, we now have multiple cultures in the police department. No surprise, no insult.
Right.
But not many of them come from outdoors culture such as we have in Canada. And so many of the urban people of whatever ethnicity have cultures that leave them without any knowledge about gun owners. So when they run across somebody with guns, they think that they have to have a SWAT team, or they think that if the gun is registered, it must be someplace where they were told it is, and it may not be. There's all sorts of levels here that could make them quite frightened of some good old boy duck hunter who really is no problem and maybe a little bit deaf when they tell him to put that gun down.
That's right. Or maybe the guy's just an a-hole, but it doesn't mean he's a threat, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is easy that accidents happen and people don't know everything.
So, back to the paper that you're talking about of the sort of the differences between Canada and the U.S. and the right to bear arms. And I remember that was one of the questions that was asked me before. He's like, "Do you think Canadians have a right to bear arms, Travis?" And I said, it's been explained to me that in Canada we have it's a privilege, and which is granted to us, but not necessarily a right, which is how it's established under law. And it's funny how, some people say, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I've heard one person say that's the worst thing that's ever came out, is having this Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because it now says that the government has the authority to tell you what's right, and we can enshrine this. And unless we tell you it's in here, then I guess it's wrong, right?
Well, it's because in Canada, rights are granted to you by the government effectively. If the government says you don't have a right, there's clearly an argument that would say that you do not have that right. Another argument would be traditional rights that were granted by the king in the English Bill of Rights that Blackstone and Sir John A. Macdonald thought that Canadians inherited. no longer exist because they're no longer exercised. If you have a right but refuse over generations to not exercise it, it starts to look more and more extinguished.
Yes.
Although, and if the courts are appointed by the Prime Minister, and the courts are the ultimate arbiter on what is or is not a right, it's not clear that the courts are separate from the Prime Minister, despite all the appointed by patronage committees that decide who will be nominated that the Prime Minister then chooses from. So essentially, it's centralized government, including executive, legislative, judicial. It's all the Prime Minister. And whatever rights one parliament invents, the next one can erase.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of difficult when the previous Conservative government says they want to diminish the civil service and sort of start cutting the government expenditures. You're kind of slitting their own throat, so to speak, because the any government that would propagate and build that larger will inherently have a better base to win future elections with. And
well, I mean, it's not just guns. The current progressive dogmas do not want to honor traditional Canadian values. The army, the military has been gradually shrunk in size and importance. There's even a government publication now that has the previous national flag, the red ensign, as a mark of racism. So if you have a red ensign or fly a red ensign, you are now suspect of racism. It may be a minor functional department mistake, or it might be something indicative, but the Liberals have invaded for a long time against traditional Canadian culture. Why this has to be erased or why this is a bad thing, again, the immigrants are used as a fulcrum to defend hate is to be a racist. And so that means they can argue that in any claim that would make a reference to principles that could discriminate is now racist or hateful. And that is really a recipe for destroying a happy multicultural country.
I totally agree. You know, when people stop using those rights and they start to wither away, they get easier and easier to take, and it's difficult, I think, for people to see what a right is, as opposed to, like, say, for example, freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, provided you're not yelling fire in a movie theater, right? And to protect that freedom of speech, you also have to be ready to be offended or have other people use that freedom in a way that you don't necessarily agree with. And I think that is sort of where the fundamental disconnect that I've been seeing as of years is that people will say, well, here's the freedom, but here's what the freedom should look like. And they try and define that whole thing. Just like with when you're talking about the difference between the U.S. and the Canadian and right to bear arms, they say, well, you know, you got a freedom of protection, but we're going to define that a little further. Now, your protection is going to come from the government. You call the police, right? We carry guns. The police can carry guns. They can have it. They'll come and they'll protect you, right? And any gun owner will say, well, in seconds count, the police are only minutes away, which is totally true. The police can't be there in your back pocket.
It's not the job of the police to protect you.
It really isn't.
The police want to create a culture of safety by their existence, but after the crime is committed, whatever, possession, property crime, violent crime, the police job is to collect evidence, provide the basis for charges. That's not going to protect you.
Right. Not at all.
The free speech argument is an interesting one. We have people, ethnicities, groups in Canada who come from places where people work really hard to hurt them. Chinese in Malaysia, Jews in Germany, various people across the world. Those are just two examples. And so one could legitimately believe that if there were hateful things said about those guys, then one might actually expect some of those hateful comments to result in violence or insults or at least life limitations, such as can't get jobs or can't get access to places and things. So clearly I can see an argument why you don't want too much hateful ethnic remarks. But on the other hand, if we have a robust democracy, a robust country where people have opinions and argue about them, we certainly should have the right to pick friends. And if I want to or don't want to be with somebody, that's my right. And that is a natural, if you wish, right, that people want to be with somebody they want to be with for whatever reason.
So Muhammad Ali said, birds of a feather flock together, right?
and often those are similarity. It's not true that the whole world is a seventh grade dance where the boys are on one side and the girls on the other, and every little ethnicity is grouped by themselves.
Right.
Many of us live in a heterogeneous world and are perfectly happy to do so. But one can be sensitive to this. So I've just argued against total freedom of speech. But on the other hand, these things get weaponized. These certainly legitimate principles get pushed too far. So now any comment that the government thinks is hatred or angry can now be ruled out, and therefore criticism of the government, criticism of government policy, which under no way should be controlled by the government, who's ever in power.
Which is scary, very scary. If they're the ones defining what hate speech is.
And Canada really has no Bill of Rights with teeth, really has no rights with teeth. There's no way that a Supreme Court will defend the rights that we're talking about as the U.S. Supreme Court does, whether you're in favor of conservative interpretations or progressive interpretations. There's just no way that the basic rights are protected. Canada put Ukrainian Canadians into concentration camps. Canada put Italian and German Canadians in concentration camps. Canada put Japanese in. So there's clearly no reason to think the government couldn't act against our best interests.
Well, where do you think things are going to be going with, so right now, I think since people have an attention span that's about TikTok length, everyone's thinking about this handgun freeze, right? This new recent handgun freeze that's happening. Have you done much looking into that one?
I've looked at it, but I don't know what to do at this point because the government has not brought in their order in council. The legislation is still in abeyance. There may well be in a week or two the order in council that makes the freeze effective, but right now it's just hanging over everybody, just like the 2020 confiscation. The so-called buyback, it's not clear what they're going to do. They keep saying different things, and it's all hanging. And again, the Liberals want public announcements. They want to make political points by announcing these things. It's not clear they will actually do anything, although with firearms, their success rate of doing is pretty good. So I wouldn't discount that they will force a New Zealand-style confiscation on people. I've heard that the last rumor I've heard is that you'll be required to mail in whatever firearm you think is prohibited. And they will decide whether it's prohibited or not.
Once they have it.
Once they have it. So the costs go back to you, not them setting up, as they did in New Zealand, drop-off spots with assessors and police and security. But Canada is obviously much bigger than New Zealand, so that's prohibitive. But just mail it in. And so Canada Post will have hundreds of thousands of guns flowing through their post offices, carefully marked as to what it is.
You know, I see a business opportunity for any entrepreneurial-minded people. So Silvercore is a firearms business, and we've got plenty of business conditions that allow for you name it. Once a prohibited firearm goes into a business inventory, businesses are permitted to buy, sell, trade between other businesses and museums, because museums are classed in the sort of same area. I wonder if a business opportunity would be for gun stores in general to buy these firearms from people rather than surrendering them to the government for destruction. The businesses can then use them for any legitimate business purpose as prescribed. Maybe they want to use them for film shoots or whatever, right? And but once it's done, maybe there could be a contingent on there that the individual who sold the firearm has the first right of refusal to purchase that firearm back.
Well, but these are rules and laws and regulations that could be rewritten for a different set. So what you suggest may be current, but the next set could be...
It would be a gamble, basically. It's rolling the dice.
Although it would be more reasonable for the buyback to go through businesses rather than people just to go to the... Staples and buy a box and ship it through Canada Post or FedEx.
Sure.
Because that would be much more vulnerable to theft or corruption than businesses which are easily required to keep track of it. Of course.
Full record keeping.
Yeah, well, I mean, FedEx would be required to keep track too, but it would be pretty complicated and easy to make mistakes. Look at how much money on the COVID support has disappeared, and nobody even knows where it went.
I know.
So it's and the same with the freeze. What are we going to do? We're going to continue grandfathering firearms, and so these horribly dangerous, incredibly destructive public safety things, you can keep them.
Right. Well, just like the prohibition of these assault weapons. Where are they? Well, in the exact same place they were before. Has anything changed? Nope. Right?
Well, but they got a couple of public relations broadcasts, and maybe the people who support this are now satisfied. It's again, going back to political marketing, it is interesting that each gun law is introduced as if there were no gun laws before.
I know. That's.
I mean, anybody who has a gun knows that has never have been true since 1892. But that's not how it's announced.
Oh man, yeah. The gun stores buy them back $1. People can pay a storage fee just so they have it, and then maybe change a government. I'll put that out as an open idea for entrepreneurial-minded people to work with.
I really find this whole thing disturbing that in the same month, the U.S. Supreme Court decides that ordinary law-abiding Americans have a natural God-given right to get a permit or to carry a handgun in defense of their person.
Yes.
Whether this is because of the Revolutionary Bill of Rights, whether it's due to federalism, that each state has an independent criminal code, whether it's due to a court system, or whether it's due to the high crime rates. American citizens, ordinary law-abiding American citizens, want a gun for protection because there is a huge crime rate, and Canada does not have as bad a crime rate. So perhaps our crime rate must get much worse before we insist on our rights.
Yeah, well, I think we're a little late at that point.
I am not going to argue for the crime rate increasing.
No.
But
Well, and I saw that come through, and I think there is 5 or 7 standing court cases that have now been told to review themselves, given this new Supreme Court ruling in the States. And you're probably going to find it being a massive win for gun rights advocates. Mind you, at the same time, there's more. I think New York just brought out some mandatory training and going to the range, and they're proposing that in order to get your firearm. It seems like such a funny treadmill of logic, which seems so off the mark for me. Like I asked the firearms program, I said, what's going on? You've announced a freeze. We've got people saying, why should I bother getting my restricted license if we can't get a handgun? And they say, oh, no, keep offering the course. We're going to keep offering it. Because even afterwards, competitive shooters and those working in armored car industry or other areas will need to have this. Okay. So people are arguing whether they should be able to have the right to keep firearms. People are arguing whether they should limit that right, whether by magazine capacity or barrel length or get rid of guns altogether. But what they're really trying to look at has got nothing to do with firearms to begin with. Really, what they're concerned about is people doing stupid things with firearms. They're looking at stupid people who are going to be doing criminal things or nefarious things, whether that be with a U-Haul van, whether that be with a jerry can. Like you look in the UK and they've got a prohibition on many types of firearms, yet they still find their way into the island of the UK and they can't keep them out of there. How is Canada supposed to be able to do that right next to the largest arms manufacturer in the world? And the UK's knife violence, so to speak, like it doesn't change the violence, it just changes the implement of destruction.
I don't really believe that the gun laws are introduced in order to reduce crime.
I agree.
It is not possible that the politicians who pass these laws are that ignorant or stupid.
I agree.
In England, the cabinet discussions of previous gun laws have become public after 50 years, and they disclose that the 1920s, 1930s British gun laws were really because the government was afraid of anarchy, anarchists, communists, revolution, unions protesting, bringing down the government. And they didn't want to admit that. So they were saying it was violent crime. The bill C-51 in 77 that brought in the firearms acquisition certificate was really a log-rolling exercise to allow capital punishment to finally be ruled out. And it hadn't been administered in several years because the culture of in government and police and prison society was against capital punishment. So this was a way to finally rule out capital punishment. I really think that the government is concerned not about criminal violence, but about control of the public and control of the population in cities primarily. You notice that C-68, when they brought it in, registration and licensing, the Treaty 8 nations were quite vigorous in defending their native rights.
Sure.
And the compromise was that chiefs, elected or appointed hereditary, could decide to issue permits.
Right.
And you also will notice that there's very little information about what is the number of, what is the percentage of Aboriginal people with firearms license or registered firearms. So we really have a large a large number of people here that we have to be concerned about. So the government really is using this as a way to increase police power, increase supervision of all people, immigrants, locals, Aboriginal. It has little to do with violent crime.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. And I think it's really self-evident to anyone who's been a student of history like yourself.
And it's you notice the emphasis on advertising and political announcements and the long timeline between actually making things effective. This is because the politics works for them. They think they can solidify the suburban ignorant people and the immigrants to build up enough voting blocks so they can maintain power. So it's really about political power and long-term disarmament. The recent Angus Reid polls that I mentioned earlier about saying what the proportion of people who own guns were also showed that the more anybody knew about gun laws, the less they supported gun laws.
Funny how that works.
Only the people that admitted they knew nothing or barely anything were the ones who were the strongest supporters of more gun laws. So really, this is support by the ignorant.
Well, doesn't that kind of bring us back to, let's say, the advisory panel? So we've got a firearms advisory panel under the previous government. It had people who were students of history, who knew about firearms laws, who've actually touched a firearm and knew how they worked, right? And so why not have a few people like yourself on that council who can provide insight and information that might be a contrary viewpoint, but a valid viewpoint that should be considered? I don't know what the current makeup is of that advisory panel, but I don't think you're on the current one, are you?
Well, no, there's no hunting groups. There's no gun rights groups. The SSA is not there. CCFR is not there. Even the pro-gun control groups have withdrawn because the government they claim, wasn't listening to them. So the advisory committee is really most of the committees there to back up what the government wants. And if you criticize the government,
you're off.
They'll take your advice.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. I'm involved with an advisory group here locally, and at the local level, it's smaller, much better than at the. And we got some good people running it that will listen to all sides and who will objectively look at the what the concerns are. I remember, not to bring it up again, but after the May 16th, 2008 debacle there for the RCMP, originally they contacted the corporation at Delta and they said, we want to know where all the firearms businesses are. And the corporation at Delta, which is now the city of Delta, says, we don't know because we classify firearms businesses under, sporting goods, I think it was. Sporting goods, and if you're doing gunsmithing, you're repair of technical instruments. So it could be watches, it could be guns. So shortly thereafter, it's all over the newspapers, front page of the Sun, front page of the Province, all the local papers. There's file photos in there that had nothing to do with myself or Silvercore that showed just terrible things. And so the local government says, well, geez, this is pretty bad. We better take a look at maybe limiting firearms businesses within our city, within the corporation of Delta. So they put a proposal forward, and they said they're going to grandfather the existing ones, but no new firearms businesses allowed in. And so I'll go to this meeting and I'll voice my two bits. And I dressed up in a suit, looking presentable, and I had all of my facts and all my figures and all my information, and I'm going through it. And I think, who was it? Barry, I think it was, might have been somebody different. He works for the city there. He says, Travis, hold on. I'm going to stop you. You realize we're only talking about this because of you, of what happened to you. I'm like, oh, thanks, right? You realize I've done nothing wrong. Like what the hell's going on here? And he says, but I appreciated his honesty. And he says, secondly, everything you're saying, I agree with. I 100% agree with everything. Every point you're making, every fact you're saying makes sense, and I agree with it. It's got nothing to do with what makes sense or what doesn't make sense. It's, are we doing what we think our constituents want? And if we think that is what it is they want, then we'll go and do it. And that was my very first introduction to politics, I guess. And it was a little bit mind-blowing to me. I thanked him for his honesty on all of that. I didn't know what to say. If you agree with me and everything I say makes sense and everyone in the room agrees with me, why are you proceeding?
Yeah.
Right? And
That's the obvious question.
Right. And so governing a country, as we currently are, by public opinion is damn scary. It's really, really scary.
Yes, and it's as you say, it's not public opinion, but it's
perceived public opinion.
It's what I think public opinion is.
Right.
And again, it's like, who were you asking? What do you mean by public?
Well, I asked all my friends who I hang out with at the
my friend.
anti-gun rallies or whatever it might be, right?
So I go back to this notion of Laurentian elite.
Right.
And the politicians talk to the news people. The news people talk to the big businesses. Each political party has a coterie of people who support them. The conservatives are more broadly based than the liberals. So who are the big money people? Who are the big movers and shakers behind the scenes? This is the public that they're talking about.
Right.
And the Liberal government since Pierre Trudeau had this notion of astroturfing activist groups. So they fund certain groups to claim they are popular groups, but it's all funded by the government. So it really isn't a reflection of public opinion, but a reflection of government money. And then they count the number of groups that they have funded as public opinion. So this is a quite complex, convoluted excuse for public opinion. So you're wrong. It's not government by public opinion. It's claimed to be government by
Right, which is really scary because people
Very
start
much.
losing the plot pretty quickly, even those who, because there are some well-intentioned people in politics. There are some that aren't as well. But at the end of the day, people look out for their best interests. People will take the path of least resistance.
everywhere.
Sure. And it's human nature. And if we expect human nature to be any different between you and I or our elected officials or those who are charged with enforcing it, we're sorely mistaken. There's just going to be there could be different levels as to where that in it for myself is, like we talked about earlier.
And so it becomes really important how the structure of government has been conceived and directed. Canada is very centralized. Ontario essentially runs the place, and it has to buy off a few people in Quebec and a few people in the Maritimes, maybe a few people in BC, and that's it. And Ontario is run by the Laurentian elite, and they are run by a few power shakers. So if you were in Nova Scotia, Manitoba, or British Columbia, and you're not happy, how do you mobilize a group of people strong enough to make your concerns heard and respected? That's very, very difficult by the nature of the structure.
But last time that I recall that they properly mobilized, that group was called terrorists. And the Emergencies Act was brought in because they had a dissenting opinion. And they said, well, no. It's because they're disrupting the supply chain. And in a time of COVID, in a time of crisis, the supply chain is important and we have to uphold that. And what happened like a couple weeks later? Wasn't it the train strike? Was it CN Rail strike? Did the government jump in to help out that supply chain?
And certain groups are untouchable. And so Aboriginal and BLM and certain other groups can violate the law, block trains, block government, but not people who are in the Freedom Trucker Convoy. And so this is different enforcement of the law, and that's very scary itself.
that just comes down to what's politically acceptable to villainize or to act upon, and what would be politically expedient to get behind. And that's, I mean, at some point, this pendulum will shift. I mean, it's going to have to, I would think.
Well, ruled by the elite. I mean, everywhere in the world, government is a small number. There's very few people actually running the thing. But in countries like the Commonwealth, where the commoners accept the rule by the elite, or at least tolerate, or at least grumble quietly and bury their guns, that is much less likely to lead to any kind of public discussion, opposition, until the thing explodes. And it may not explode.
It might not explode.
Many governments learn how to just let out a little bit of pressure on this pressure cooker until they keep running the thing.
Or divert attention, right?
So it depends how clever the government is, or how much they can buy off. Oppositions around the world find that some of their key politicians are owned by the other party, and that's standard politics.
Sure it is. Man,
anyway, I'm not sure this is uplifting. But
no, I know. It's interesting, and it's important, I think, to talk about. And I really think it's important to have a better understanding. You've obviously looked at these issues from a very broad level and a very acute level, right? You've delved into certain areas very, very deeply, and you have a lot to say on it. In the area of firearms and firearms control and the means thereof, you're an expert. That's what you do.
Wow. Any lawyer knows that you can find an expert on all sides of the question.
Right.
So I may have spent a lot of time and energy studying, but I am just one voice and one person trying to figure out to the best of my ability what's going on. But certainly there are other people with other ideas.
What advice would you have for people who are saying, look, enough's enough. We got to have our voice heard some way?
Well, the first thing is to make that decision. And many people don't even get that far because going along to get along is easier. You've got a job, you've got a family, you've got career goals. And if guns are just a hobby, or politics is just a Facebook place to say nasty things, then people don't even get to that question, which is the crucial.
Right.
Then once you do decide, then you have to decide what is reasonable. And since there are already groups around that have decided that what they think is reasonable, then you should assess them. So in the gun area, look at the NFA, look at the CSSA, look at the CCFR, get involved, find out what they're doing, send them some money, be critical, listen to them. Every group has strengths and weaknesses because they're human, and see which group accords most closely to your own interests and you think is effective. Make sure they're financially honest, because in a world of ignorant peasants, charlatans find lots of business opportunities. So I don't know that any of the groups I've mentioned are charlatans. I'm just saying that one should make sure that their books are public, make sure that what their actions are known, and evaluate them.
Smart.
And then put your best effort involved and help out. Join political parties. Join 2 or 3. See what they're about. How do they listen to the grassroots? How do they listen to their leaders? What can you do to be influential? Pick one. Put some time, energy, and money into it. Will you change the universe? No.
No, but little by little, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
And if you see Canada and don't like it, go someplace else,
Yeah.
or change it. I mean, there's lots of places in the universe that are tolerable. I've lived in a couple of countries. I liked France. I liked England. I liked the United States. I like Canada. I mean, there's lots of good places. Costa Rica, Singapore, Korea. There's all kinds of really nice countries in the world. Which one suits you?
Yeah. I remember reading a book many years ago. It was supposed to be banned in Canada. I think they call it PT. It was basically just tax evasion was the book, but it was sold under a philosophy of being a perpetual traveler, or it didn't stand for anything, but it had a bunch of, and one of the precepts of it was, if you really like a certain thing and you can't do that in your country, what's holding you there? Really?
That's right.
So interesting.
I mean, my recipe is get involved. I wasn't a gun person when I started, and my curiosity got me to learn more and more. And so I began collecting guns. I began hunting. I began target shooting, and I discovered how much fun and enjoyable it was. I was shocked that the people at the Barnett Rifle Club were perfectly reasonable, if different than my university professors. And eventually I discovered that they made more sense. They were just rational, good sense, kind of salt of the earth people. And so I got involved and started thinking about things. And again, I'm a professor. I write, I think, I criticize. That's my major contribution to any of this.
Is there anything else that we should be bringing up?
Well, one of the things I've developed is the BCWF Political Action Alliance.
Right.
I wear three hats. The professor hat is what we spent today talking about, but I'm also a volunteer with BC Wildlife, and I chair their Firearms Committee, and that is essentially educating the membership and motivating them to get involved, like I just argued here, that they should get involved, and the BCWF is one way to stand up for hunters. One of my colleagues in BCWF has worked really hard with Bill 4, BC government's bill, and the BCWF is mostly interested in the impact of this legislation on gun clubs. But both C-71, C-21, as well as Bill BC-4 enlarge the red flag laws. And I find this incredibly scary on the grounds that we were talking earlier, that you may have nothing to hide. You may be a completely honest, upstanding people, but you could be slandered. You can be caught in trouble. A red flag erases all judicial defenses for having your guns taken away and your freedom taken away.
Right.
We're not talking just about angry ex-wives or ex-husbands. We're not talking about doctors who don't know anything about guns, but all social workers, any government employee can, or any person who knows one of these, can claim that you are dangerous. And on the basis of that, the police can come, take all your guns, and put you in jail. And now you have to defend that you are not dangerous.
That is
and get your guns back.
Very scary.
And it's very scary because, however not dangerous you are, with the demonization of guns, normal people who know nothing about guns can easily be frightened.
Sure.
It wasn't just public theater when you ran into a police charges. They had SWAT teams. They had armed people all around, partly for theater, but partly because some of those people were actually frightened.
They're fearful. Sure. And in my circumstance, if I responded differently than somebody else would have, it could have been a very different situation.
That's right.
I just looked at this, and in the back of my head, I was kind of like laughing, like they're going to figure this out. And like these are people I work with all the time. They'll figure it out in a second. They must be following up. I had no idea what was going on. It took a long time, and the amount of money and resources I was put into trying to double down on that lie, it was pretty impressive. I mean, the amount they knew within the first couple hours they made a mistake. They knew definitively within the first 3 days they made a mistake, and by the end of the week they had it written that they'd really messed up. Still spent 8 years trying to double down and cover up the mistake, which is with that sort of intention and mindset, it can very easily go astray in the heat of the moment. If
Some people get angry.
some people get angry,
I know one person, an ex-policeman, who objected to the new hydrometers, and he thought that they were a violation, and so he objected angrily to a hydro worker coming onto his property to change the meter. That led to his guns being confiscated, he being arrested, and he had to fight to get both his guns back and his freedom. So if people get angry and they resist either through arrogance, ignorance, or just a wrong response, things can go bad very quickly.
that's one thing that I found within the firearms community in Canada. By and large, the option to get angry seems greatly diminished. People are very, very cognizant of the fact that their anger can be either it can be misconstrued intentionally or unintentionally. Someone can just be afraid of firearms, or they can say, aha, I'll use this tool now. And in fact, there's this red flag law maybe I can lean on and do something with.
That's been my impression too. So many of the people I know who own guns are incredibly responsible. I've taken media people to the range to introduce them to guns, and so they shoot rifles, shotguns, handguns. And I've had a couple of reporters who cheeks flush. They're so excited. It looks sexual that they are just so emotionally involved with shooting a firearm. And I don't see that kind of thing with
We don't
normal
understand
gun
it,
owners.
right?
And I talked to them afterwards, and they said, "Whoa, a gun gives me so much power. I feel like I could kill anybody. I feel like I'm the boss of the universe." And I think the gun owners I know don't feel like that. They feel
Nobody.
humbled. They
Right.
feel responsible and in awe of the power. But
Right.
that means response, maturity, and therefore they don't get all emotional and crazy.
Right. I've actually seen the exact same thing with new folks to the range, and reported typically people who are adamantly against firearms, but they acquiesce to the invitation to show that they're a good sport. And that same statement, that feeling of power when it was in my hands, I have never, ever felt a feeling of power by holding a firearm in my hand, and I don't know anybody who does.
Well, I feel a responsibility.
A responsibility,
And-
yes.
and that's a power, if you wish.
Okay.
Gary Kleck, in his 1997 book on guns in America, has this notion that the purpose of a gun is not killing. The basic design feature, the basic justification for a gun is power. That it gives you power to do things that you couldn't otherwise do. So governments with guns have power. Revolutionaries with guns have power. Criminals, people defending themselves have guns for power. So obviously power isn't necessarily a bad thing or a necessary good thing, but it's power. You can defend yourself. A small 100-pound dripping wet woman with a gun in her purse can stop a 250-pound rapist.
Yes.
A hunter who's 250 pounds with a rifle can stop a 1,000-pound moose.
Yes.
This is power. So it's not ecstatic, crazy power like my media example, but a responsibility. That comes with maturity. So the people I think we know who have firearms licenses, American and Canadian,
Have a different level of
or
maturity.
French for that matter, or British, the ones I know anyway, certainly have responsibility and can use these powers responsibly.
What's that old saying? God made man, but Sam Colt made man equal. Right?
Yeah, Colonel Colt.
Colonel Colt made
So
equal.
anyway, I would like to add Political Action Alliance among the groups that people should consider supporting. The Political Action Alliance's only function is to run pro-gun, anti-liberal election ads during election campaigns. We have been in existence since the 90s, and each federal election we run ads to the extent of our budget, which is microscopic.
Sure.
And we inform people that gun laws are useless and the liberals are wasting your taxpayer money when they could do something that actually is useful, like
Yes.
improve health care, keep violent people in jail longer, help violent people become less violent. There's a lot of things that could be done, but the gun control is really not a step in any of those directions.
I agree. Well, I think that's an excellent thing. I'm going to put links to that in the podcast so people can see it. We can, both on YouTube, you can take a look at the link section. It'll link to these different things.
I can give you a link to justiceforgunowners.ca.
Okay.
That's the website that I use to ask for money, ask for contributions, and put down my long-winded, statistically stuffed commentary.
It's fantastic. Well, Gary, thank you so very much for being on the Silvercore podcast. I really, really appreciate it. I love chatting with you, and I'm hoping we'll have more chats like this in the future.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I hope it was interesting, and I didn't just flap my gums too much, and hope people enjoy it. Thank you.